Genesis 50 and verse 20. But as for you, you thought evil. Say evil.
Evil.
This is Genesis 50:20. This is the story of Joseph. You thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good.
Wow.
Say good.
Good.
To bring to pass as it is this day to save much people alive. Now, how can being isolated and picked on by your siblings all the time be good, be used for good? How can being not only isolated and picked on, and even when he'd approach them, they'd be mocking him from a distance, but far beyond that, they planned to murder him. Now, ended up in a group session deciding, no, we'll throw him in a pit instead. They throw him in a pit. How can this be good? Then beyond that, they go, oh, we could make some money out of him. Here comes some slave traders. They sell their own baby brother into slavery to pagans. How can this be for good? He then goes in slavery and he's sold and begins to work at a man's house, and then the wife starts lusting after him and accuses him of rape, which they all believe. How can this be worked for good? Then after being accused of rape, he's thrown in the deepest, darkest prisons with pagan prisoners, not godly prisoners. Such a thing. I know there is many of those. And then in there, he meets some people who say they're going to remember him before the Pharaoh and get him out of there, and they forget about him. 14 years of this he goes through before we begin to see some upsides. And yet, Joseph lost his childhood, lost being with his parents, lost all those experiences, suffered so much, and not one bit of victimhood coming out of him. He didn't get to marry young like his brothers did and have all the kids that his brothers did because they were with the Jews. He only had 2 kids, I believe, that we know of, and he had to marry a pagan, and he was in a pagan environment. But so many life experiences that were robbed from him, so much pain he had to endure, betrayal. I mean, he could have been so bitter. He could have been the ultimate victim, and his response is, all things. Even the evil that was done against me has worked together for good. This is a true victor right here. Awesome. Let's jump back a couple of chapters to 45. Joseph is a great encouragement as a victor, and I always love it how God has people with extreme examples, which really makes ours look like nothing.
So good.
Genesis chapter 45 and verse 5. Now, this is when he's talking with his brothers. This is a story well worth reading about being a victor, the whole story, but we don't have time for that, so we're just going to do some bits. But here he is talking with his brothers, and he says to them in verse 5, now therefore, brothers, be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves. They were freaking out, by the way. Brief backstory. There was a massive famine going on years later. After all this stuff with Joseph, he's now seconding charge of the whole kingdom only to Pharaoh, right? So God has done incredible things in his life, which God will do to anybody who chooses the victim mentality. He cannot do it to a victim, but a victor, God will raise up, and he will bless ridiculously. They will be for the glory of his name, but they've got to choose the victim mindset. You will not be blessed, and that'll make you stay in victimhood all the more. Why is he blessing everybody else and not me? Because they're choosing the victim choices. You're not. You are attracting more and more victimhood. Yep. You've got to start choosing, and then you've got to stick with that decision, and then you'll see the fruit. So anyway, there's famine now, and he's there. He's got a lot of power. His brothers are sent by their father, the ones who sold him into slavery and hated him. They are sent by their father to come and get some aid, come and get some food aid, right? So they rock up and then he reveals himself, it's their brother who's in charge of all the food. Not only that, he's in charge of, he could just call on the whole army and have these guys incinerated immediately for what they've done to him. He has unlimited power at his fingertips now. And he says to these brothers who did all this evil to him, now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that you sold me hither, for God did send me before you to preserve life. I wonder, victims, if you would start to say, God allowed me. He didn't cause it. But he allowed me to go through never beyond what I could bear, because he is always with me. He never leaves me and he never forsakes me. His grace is absolutely abundant to take care of our every need. But he allowed me to go through this pain, this suffering. You hear of Joyce Meyer's testimony. Her dad raped her. Oh, she can't even count how many times. This is her own father abusing her over and over and over and over until she left the house when she was 17 or whatever. And yet she was able to forgive him. She's gone on and has a worldwide massive ministry. And she does not live as a victim. She chose to believe God and live as a victor. She chose. She even says now, I can't even say that I'm sorry that it happened. Did I want it to happen? Absolutely not. But what God has been able to use me, how God has used that in my testimony, in my life, to deliver and free and be an inspiration and encouragement to millions of others, it was definitely worth it. What Satan planned for evil, God has used for much good.
Come on.
That is what a victor thinks.
Yes.
A victim goes, why did that happen to me? Why did that happen to me? How did you let that happen to me? I was crying out to you, God. Why? You could have done something. Why didn't you stop it, God? Did God stop Joseph being sold into slavery, being thrown in the pit, being falsely accused, being forgotten about in prison? No, but God remembered him. As Joseph chose to believe God, God remembered him and God set him on high. And God fulfilled all of his promises. Verse 6. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing. So he knew it was going to go for 7 years. God sent me before you to preserve you. I mean, these are his abusers. And he's like, yep, actually no, God was allowing me to go before you. And that's what Job's done for us. Job has gone before us and suffered the loss of 10 children. The loss of his health, his wealth, his livelihood, his reputation. He lost everything that a man would hold dear. He went before us to show that a man can hit the ground and say, naked I came into this world, naked I will depart. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Come on. Let's go.
God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth. I'm here to make sure that you live on to have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Do you know Joyce Meyer led her own father to Jesus? Wow. Baptized her own father after he raped her innumerable times? She forgave. She's a victor.
Come on.
Joseph is a victor. You be a victor. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh. And Lord of all of his house. This is what God will do for those who put their trust in him and choose the path of the victor. He is the ultimate victor and we walk in his stead. I am now a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Victors choose to forgive.
Come on now. So good.
Haste ye now and go up to my father and say unto him, thus says your son Joseph. God has made me Lord. He hasn't seen his father for now around 16 years. God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me now, tarry not. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, and you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks, and your herds, and all that you have. And there will I nourish you. For yet there are 5 years of famine, still to come, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty. And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin," that's his younger brother that he found out he had, "that it is in my mouth that speaks to you." So Benjamin's going to go and tell his dad, so they trust him, because hard to trust the brothers who sold you into slavery. So baby brother, who's younger than Joseph, goes and tells his dad, "You shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that you have seen. You shall haste and bring down my father here." And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck, and he wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, look at this, he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. A victor forgives. He's kissing the brothers who betrayed him, who hated him, who robbed him of all that life and put him through all that suffering. Who do you need to forgive today?
Come on.
Yourself? I know people very close to me, even. Somebody experienced deliverance like this just a few years ago in the lounge room with us, not our own immediate family, but not far away. And they experienced deliverance right in front of our eyes because they forgave themselves.
Yeah.
That in the heat of a moment, a stressed out situation, they made decisions that cost so much pain later on. And they felt guilty and ashamed and angry about that for years and years. They just kept trying to bury it with distractions and entertainment, but it would always be there, just lurking. And then right there in front of us, they spat it out of their mouth. And that's what you might need to do. Just say it out loud, what you believe you did wrong. You need to go to someone trusted. Find someone you trust. Find someone who's mature. You need to get it out. I know I did. I remember, being in a meeting and the minister said, if there's something you're afraid of somebody finding out about, you're still in bondage.
Right.
And I immediately felt like I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
Because I knew there were things that I never wanted to be involved with. I already dealt with them with God. Yeah, well, why is it called and you nearly throw up then? Just talking about it.
Exactly.
Like, obviously it's not dealt with. I call that being buried.
That's good.
Like, God knows about it, yet, sweet, okay. Yeah, but you haven't actually gotten healed about it.
Yeah.
You haven't brought it into the light and got genuine freedom and deliverance from this
Come
thing.
on. So good.
So I actually left that meeting as quickly as possible. And I did not make eye contact with the minister because I knew it would be written all over my face that I was about to vomit. And I actually walked in the front door of my home, normally would have a chat with my parents and stuff, straight to my room. And then I made a decision in my room, either I'm never going back there because that's nasty. And I don't think I want to deal with it. I haven't dealt with it all these years and I don't know if I want to. It's making me very sick, just the thought of dealing with it. The thought of it being exposed. The thought of what people are going to think about me when they know these things about me. Or, I need to get this out ASAP. I left for university at 5 o'clock every morning because I lived quite a ways away from Melbourne and I had to get to Melbourne University every day by car, train, tram, and then walking. And so I got up at 5 a.m. and I was heading towards to park at the train stop, and then I was like, nah, I gotta get this dealt with. So I diverted and went round to a lady's house who I trusted. I waited out the front till about 6:30, and then I'm like, knock, 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 knock. Just like, what the heck? And I'm like, I just need to talk to you about a few things, if that's okay. And she's like, yeah, sure. Maybe a little cup of tea, sat down, and out it came. And I felt so bad while I was saying it, but as soon as I said it, it was done. It was literally like a demon spirit came out of me. I was delivered. I went home 10 tons lighter. So you can imagine how heavy the scales were prior to that. It was insane. That's why I'm so skinny now. I've been delivered. I've been set free.